Donald J. Trump's Manhattan criminal trial on charges that he covered up a sex scandal will start on April 15th after a judge today denied the former president's attempts to delay it further. The judge, Juan Merchant, appeared unmoved by Trump's request for more time to prepare for his criminal trial on charges linked to conduct that could have derailed his stunning victory in the 2016 presidential election. Well, that judge made a decision that held Donald Trump accountable. The appellate judges in New York ruled, and this is a five appellate court decision, they ruled today that the $454 million bond that Donald Trump had to make in the civil fraud case in New York involving allegations, or not allegations, but the conviction for him inflating his property, that Donald Trump didn't have to put up that entire bond amount. In fact, he could be allowed to post a $175 million bond, and he was given an additional 10 days in which to do so. If Trump obtains a smaller bond, it will prevent the Attorney General from collecting while he appeals the $454 million judgment against him. The appeal in the case, in which a trial judge found that Trump fraudulently inflated his net worth, could take months or longer to resolve. And Puerto Ricans on the island can't vote for President Biden or any president this November, but those who are from the U.S. territory and live on the mainland are becoming a major priority for Joe Biden's reelection campaign. Uh, Vice President Harris traded in her chilly Washington, D.C. clothes and for tropical temperatures and lighter gear as she traveled to Puerto Rico on Friday. This is the first visit that the vice president has made to this island since becoming vice president. And the president of Lincoln University in Missouri will remain in his position. The institution decided this after an investigation into the suicide of a Black administrator. They found no evidence that the president had bullied this administrator. President John Mosley, who is white, was placed on paid leave after the death in January of Bonnie Candida Bailey, the vice president of student affairs at Lincoln University, which is a historically Black university. And Maryland's Congressman Jamie Raskin weighed in on Maryland's closely watched U.S. Senate contest today, endorsing Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks. Now, he made this endorsement over Representative David Trone, who sits in the House with Representative Raskin. Raskin also said that he vowed to keep the seat in Maryland blue and that he would support whatever or whichever Democratic candidate makes it to the general election. The United Nations Security Council today passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza for the month of Ramadan, breaking a 5-month impasse during which the U.S. vetoed several calls for ending the war, even as the humanitarian toll continued to climb. The resolution passed with 14 votes in favor. The U.S. abstained, which allowed the resolution to pass. And federal agents today from the Department of Homeland Security raided a home in Los Angeles. Law enforcement officials said this was connected to Sean Combs, the hip hop mogul, who has been accused of sexual assault and sex trafficking in several civil lawsuits. In response to questions about news reports of a raid of Mr. Combs' residence, Homeland Security investigators said that the Homeland Security Investigations New York Division executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from Homeland Security Los Angeles and Homeland Security Miami. They said, we will provide further information as it becomes available. This is Areva Martin in real time, and that's the news of today. I am your host, and this is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in real time, and this is the hour where we go a little deeper, where we dig behind the headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, as you have heard us say many times over the last couple of months, KBLA has embarked upon a $2 million climate justice campaign. And the whole purpose is to raise the IQ of African Americans leading into this presidential election. about climate justice, about the issues that impact underserved and underrepresented communities. Today, we are talking about our water supply and are asking the question from local as well as national experts about the water supply that we all depend on for everything from drinking water to cooking meals to serving babies. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency recently estimated that there are 9.2 million lead service lines across all 50 states. An earlier report had put that number between 9.7 million and 12.8 million. We also know that between 2018 and 2020, at least 186 million people, now that's more than half of the country's population, drank from water systems that detected lead levels that are higher than those recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. So let me just repeat that again. 186 million people, more than half of the country, between 2018 and 2020, drank from water systems that detected lead levels that were higher than those recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. And this is a recommendation they make with regards to protecting school children. Now, wondering, lead is an issue in the water source and the water supply that over 186 million people are exposed to. That seems like a really troubling number. It is a really troubling number, particularly when we think about the laws that have been passed and the regulations that have been passed around making our water supply safe. When we come forward, we're going to talk to Adrian Hightower. He is a sustainability and resiliency manager for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Water District. Also in this hour, we're going to talk to Kyle Jones. He is a policy director at the Community Water Center in Central Valley, California. These are experts on the water supply in the state of California and around this country. Going to get their take on how safe is the water that we drink. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough.
If you're looking for the most epic place on earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret.
Uh-huh.
I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
We are back, and in this hour, we are focused on our climate justice campaign. And today it's all about water. For many of us, we thought issues of lead and contamination in our water source had been resolved decades ago, but we were wrong. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, there is an estimated 186 million people between 2018 and 2020 who were exposed to water that contained lead amounts that were higher than those that are recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics to protect school children. Joining me first in this hour is Adrian Hightower. He is a sustainability and resiliency manager for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Water District. Thank you so much, Adrian, for joining. Help us understand how the issue of lead in water is still an issue today. I mean, we heard lots of horror stories about lead and contaminated water, particularly around Flint, Michigan, and some other places. But overall, I think most of us think that our water supply is safe. Is that an accurate assumption on our part?
Overall, your water supply is safe. And overall, water agencies are required to tell you what's in your water annually. And so the challenges that you speak of, which are nationwide, cover a very diverse area, particularly areas in the east, less so actually in the west where we are, where the infrastructure is substantially older. The last thing I'll say is that your water agencies take pride in providing water to you, but we can only provide it up to a certain point. We don't work in the pipes on premises. So whatever your last mile is that is owned by a private entity, we don't deal with that. The last thing I'll say that will give you a lot of hope is your water agencies only want to serve you clean water. That's our whole job. And frankly, legislation is in support of us doing that. Most recently, I think it's 2023 AB 259 provided guidance and funding for testing in schools for California. So no, we're aware of the issue. It is less of an issue on the west side of the country than the east side of the country, mostly associated with aging infrastructure. But that's all we're interested in, is providing clean water.
So you said aging infrastructure. Obviously, there are people on the West Coast, that people in Los Angeles that live in older buildings, that live in older homes, and still, it may not be as pervasive as the aging infrastructure, say in a place like Philadelphia, but should people who live in California, who, like I say, live in 100-year-old homes, should they be concerned about their pipes? Because, as you said, the water source may be free of contaminations when it leaves the source, but then it goes to these aging pipes. Is there any concern there?
Again, there's a whole variety of people's homes out there, and I can't really speak to that. I can tell you that, maintenance is not an obvious thing, but it's an important thing. Your faucet has a little aerator at the very end. It's a good idea, and the EPA recommends cleaning that aerator. I haven't cleaned it in a couple months, but that is something we can do to personally ensure that. Again, we can guarantee the water that is leaving our treatment plants, and we can tell you exactly what's in it, and we're quite proud of that.
I've never heard that we should clean that little filter.
Sure.
How frequently should we do it, and how difficult is it to do it ourselves, or is this something we need a plumber for?
No, I think just unscrew it and put it in some vinegar and you're good to go.
Okay. We've heard a lot about green infrastructure
Yeah.
investments and how those investments impact communities of color and underserved communities. What should we be thinking about when we think of those investments, particularly around the issue of water?
You should appreciate that those investments are long overdue and that we're really, frankly, welcome the investments from the federal government in terms of these opportunities to improve not only our water treatment systems, but our water delivery systems, our energy systems. There's a broad need to upgrade both water and energy systems, and so we're welcoming that. When you think about that, not only is it to improve our conditions for living, but there's a lot of opportunities for jobs and green jobs in particular. And so I think as communities are engaged with their agencies in developing these projects, that there are new opportunities for engagement in workforce development, as well as, frankly, community benefits programs.
Some of the jobs that particularly folks in minority communities can look to that will be created by this kind of investment, this green infrastructure investment.
Yeah, it depends how broad you'd like to go. Certainly, there's the traditional jobs in terms of operators and constructions associated with these buildings. But frankly, this is the 21st century, and we do infrastructure development differently and better than we have in the past. And that calls for new jobs. Cybersecurity is a serious issue. We need cybersecurity experts. Community engagement is a real issue. We need experts with cultural literacy. Our programs now are in terms of multilingual engagement. That is best practices. So there are all types of jobs beyond the traditional engineering and operator jobs that are needed for a successful transition to a green infrastructure.
And is this green infrastructure, these investments, we hear a lot about the Biden administration infrastructure deal. Are a lot of these investments a result of the infrastructure bipartisan legislation that Biden spearheaded?
Yeah, if you look historically in terms of how the infrastructure that we rely on, our dams, our aqueducts, it was mostly developed by federal dollars. Fast forward 50, 70, 80, 100 years, and it is mostly local dollars. So we are really going back to a model that was successful, not only with our water infrastructure, but our highways. So again, the scale of development really requires the involvement of federal agencies to fund these projects. And so, again, long overdue, and we're really welcoming it. We're going to try to take advantage of this time.
Have we seen those investments at work yet? Like if people are out on the streets or on the roads, are they likely to see evidence of these investments? Are they seeing, you know, new treatment plants, for example? Like what will they see? What will be visual or to people? What will be readily apparent to them?
In some cases, you may be inconvenienced by the building of new pipes. We're talking about serious construction, but we're also talking about, frankly, a very long time scale. So right now, your first chance to see this is community engagement with our infrastructure agencies. LA Metro in terms of transportation active, Metropolitan Water District, LADWP active in terms of designing infrastructure with communities, not imposing upon, but with communities. So that's the first place you'll see it. And then you'll also see that in terms of skill training and job development to prepare for once these construction jobs happen. And then you will see large scale investments. Recycled water is our newest and probably best resource for addressing long-term resource adequacy.
Why now? Did something happen? Like, was there some incident or what was the catalyst for this investment in this moment, in this time frame?
Well, I'm in sustainability, so I have a very specific perspective, but you could just point to your latest climate disaster if you'd like. We have been lucky enough to experience fairly wet season, but we are out of record droughts and more droughts than we have seen historically and deeper droughts than we have seen historically. And all of that is consistent with what we would expect with a changing climate. So The figure I throw out that's most relevant is, frankly, I think in the last 2 months we had 3,000-year storms. That is climate change, and your infrastructure, which again was designed for last century, needs to be designed for this century's evolving climate.
You know, you hear a lot of people use the term climate change, and we know that
Mhm.
they're so-called climate change deniers. But like, what's the layman's definition of climate change? Explain that to us, because like I said, a lot of people use the term a lot, but I'm
Sure.
not sure everyone is in agreement about what it means.
Yeah, it's the implications of increased greenhouse gases that increases the overall temperature of the planet. And if you'd like to test it, everybody can test it. You just go outside, go in your car on a hot summer's day, and you will find that the interior of the car is hotter than the exterior. And that is why there are laws passed that you don't leave children or pets. But that greenhouse effect is the same thing that we're experiencing globally. And because there's more higher temperatures, there is more energy in the planet and in the climate, and it is manifesting in ways that we haven't seen before, with more extreme events.
So what happens if we don't do something to change or reverse the effect of this, this this increasing of greenhouse gases? If we just continue along the path we're on, what should we expect?
Um, Again, I'll refer you to the 3 decades of climate activism if you'd like to see some of the effects. But in terms of what is going to happen for California and in terms of how it relates to water, we are quite sure that we will see a change in precipitation. If we are lucky, we will get the same amount or more precipitation. That would be great if we're lucky, but we know that that type of precipitation is going to be different in nature. We will get more rain and less snow. That's pretty well accepted. But that provides a huge problem, which is not obvious. All of our infrastructure for water in California and the West really was designed for snow. And snow comes in the winter. It's
I think we're having some issues with Adrian's audio. Going to try to work that out. Hopefully, we can get him back. He's telling us that California infrastructure is designed for snow, but if climate change continues, we're likely to see an increase in rain, which isn't good for us. When we come forward, Kyle Jones is going to join us, and maybe he can help us understand better what Adrian was saying in terms of why this precipitation and more rain versus snow is bad for the climate. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
When we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. New York City Mayor Eric Adams had to cancel his trip to the U.S.-Mexico border over safety concerns. Adams, who is Black, was supposed to leave Saturday to visit the border in Texas to meet with humanitarian leaders. The visit came on the heels of New York City facing challenges with migrants in the city, with over 180,000 coming to the city looking for assistance since 2022. The last 2 of 6 former Mississippi law enforcement officers known as the Goon Squad were sentenced to lengthy federal prison terms. Former Rankin County Sheriff's Deputy Brett McAlpin was handed a sentence of over 27 years, and former Richland police officer Joshua Hartfield was sentenced to more than 10 years. The sentences come after all 6 former officers admitted to beating and sexually assaulting 2 Black men in January of 2023. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In Hawthorne, the 105 East off-ramp to Crenshaw Boulevard, a brush fire near the right shoulder of the off-ramp has got traffic slow from the 405. In Mission Hills, 118 west before the 405, a stalled vehicles take up the carpool lane. Traffic slow from Sepulveda Boulevard. In Clarita, 14 north before Placerta Canyon Road, that's a crash moving the right shoulder, and traffic's deadlocked from Balboa Boulevard. Little good news out of Industry, 60 eastbound at 605, that crash has cleared, but traffic is slow as you're coming from Downey Road.
Join the Los Angeles Dodgers on April 2nd for Healthcare Appreciation Night. Purchase a Healthcare Night ticket pack and receive an exclusive Dodger vest. For tickets and information, visit Dodgers.com/ticketpacks. Again, that's Dodgers.com/ticketpacks.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers' 150 points Sunday against Indiana was the highest total for the franchise in a non-overtime game since they dropped 155 on Phoenix on January 2nd, 1987. They need to save a few of those points over the final 11 games. They start a 6-game Eastern road trip Tuesday in Milwaukee. The Lakers are 3 games behind Phoenix to move up into the 6th spot in the Western Conference to avoid the play-in round. 8 black coaches have guided their teams to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments, 5 on the women's side and 3 on the men. In the women's tournament, Dawn Staley at South Carolina, Niele Ivey at Notre Dame, Yolette McPhee-McEwen at Mississippi, Cara Lawson at Duke, and Felicia Leggett-Jack at Syracuse. On the men's side, Hubert Davis at North Carolina, Kelvin Sampson at Houston, and Shaka Smart at Marquette. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
There are many healthcare organizations serving our community. Not all are dedicated to community partnerships that educate, build trust, inspire hope, and improve outcomes. Providence has a robust community outreach program and has dedicated $50 million over the next 5 years to support organizations addressing health disparities in local communities of color. Examples of this commitment include the Biddy Mason Community Wellness Center on the First AME campus, providing medical screenings, mental health therapy, nutrition, and culturally sensitive holistic classes. The Black Mamas Glowing Peer Support Group that focuses on maternal mental health, birth planning, and social support. Providence is committed to building trusted partnerships with community organizations to better understand and dismantle structural, racial, and cultural barriers to better health. During Minority Health Month, Providence is sponsoring Health for a Better World. Informative conversations with Providence health professionals on Urban Family Focus every Saturday in April at 7 a.m. To find a Providence Health System facility near you, log on to providence.org.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, we're talking about climate justice, and in particular, the water supply that most of us rely upon for drinking water, for cooking, for bathing, for any number of things. And Adrian Hightower is with us. He is the Sustainability and Resiliency Manager for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Water District. Also in this hour, Kyle Jones is here. He's Policy Director at Community Water Center in Central Valley, California. So, Adrian, you said that California depends on more snow versus rain, and that we're getting more precipitation instead of snow, and that was a problem. Why is that an issue?
It is an issue because the snow stores on the mountain by itself. And if it doesn't do that, if we just get more precipitation in the form of rain, we have to do something with that. Our infrastructure is designed to prevent flooding and disasters and does a great job at that. But now we need to rethink how we store water and move water so that we can utilize it throughout the year. To that end, I'll tell you that Metropolitan, along with our member agencies and other utilities, are thinking seriously about climate in our planning process. We're doing a Camp 4W, Climate Adaptation Master Plan for Water, which changes the way we think about and design infrastructure for this new climate reality.
Okay, good to hear. I know that so many people are, don't really think about these issues, snow versus rain, and climate change and how it's impacting everything from our infrastructure to the water that we drink. So thank you for the work that you're doing with the Los Angeles Metropolitan Water District, and thank you for enlightening us on this very important topic. Kyle, I want to bring you into this conversation. Kyle, so many folks don't really think about, we don't go around thinking about our water source. We just assume that it's safe. I don't think a lot of these climate justice issues are top of mind for folks, but why should we be thinking about water and other climate issues?
Well, I mean, water is life, and there is a human right to water. We need water to absolutely do everything to live, to thrive. And unfortunately, in California, surprisingly, too many people are without water access at all. And if you don't have access to water in your community, to safe water, to where you can just drink from the tap and afford that water, that causes a whole host of other problems. If your water is unhealthy, then folks in your community are going to be getting sick, are going to get cancer from the water that they have. Additionally, if your community doesn't have access to water, you're unable to develop an economy. Too many communities just are going to get left behind if they're not able to use water in a way to invest in businesses to grow. And so really it's about making sure that if we all have access to safe, clean, and affordable drinking water, not only are we going to be able to be resilient against climate change, but more resilient against climate change, but we're actually going to have a more equitable future than what we have now.
So when you say that some people in the state of California, and I presume this would be across the country as well, don't have access to water, that's just puzzling to me when you think about, a state as rich as California, the size of our economy, think about technology. How is it that there's some communities without access to safe water?
Yeah, there's actually the number fluctuates, but we found it's been about 1 million people in California don't have access to clean or safe drinking water. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but most of them, at least when it comes to the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley, where we work, a lot of that comes back to a lot of reasons why communities of color don't have resources in other aspects. It's that many of the communities we work with are farm worker communities, and they weren't allowed to live in the established cities that had better established systems. So we have families who have domestic wells in their backyard that have gone dry because the agricultural industry continues to overpump the water underneath their feet. Or we have these communities, maybe they did establish a water system, but it's a small water system. And so it doesn't have the resources or the size to really pay for the upgrades that need to happen. And I think as Dr. Hightower mentioned, there's been a lot of, we haven't had a lot of federal or state investment in water the way we should. And so if you're a small community and you haven't been able to make the upgrades that are needed to keep your water safe, if your infrastructure is just failing, your whole community starts falling behind.
When I think about water, and I'm just thinking about the water, the business of selling water, right? Seems like, so often we see some big company comes out with some brand of water, whether they're selling it in plastic bottles or paper containers or cans. Why is bottled water or canned water or carton water such a big business if our water supply is safe? Like, how come we just, save our money, stop buying all these plastic bottles of water and just drink our water from our faucet?
I think too many people don't know to trust their tap or can't trust their tap. We've disinvested in our water infrastructure until we have the communities like the ones we work at that have nitrate contamination, hexavalent chromium, PFAS, a whole host of contaminants that can cause a range of diseases, including blue baby syndrome, in which children can't breathe properly and get sick, that cause cancer. 1,2,3-TCP is a contaminant found in the Central Valley, the Central Coast, that is heat activated. So you can't even take a hot shower safely with that. So for too many people in this country, there just isn't safe water. And I think that creates a pathway where, people can then go and sell a product. And in reality, that's not right. Too many people are spending money on something that should cost them pennies for what they're paying out of their tap. And so we just need to make sure that we're investing in making sure that water is accessible, it's safe, and it's affordable. Because without the investment from the state and federal governments, what ends up happening is ratepayers foot the cost of the bill. And that just means water rates go up beyond what people can afford.
So I go back to the question of safety and consumer knowledge. I mean, all of us, we move into a house, we move into an apartment, we go to a restaurant, we turn on the water in those facilities and we just assume it's safe. And you just said that contaminated water can cause serious illnesses like cancer, like other kinds of very serious illnesses. So how would any consumer know that the water they're drinking could be contaminated?
Well, thankfully for a lot of the larger cities in this country, water is fairly safe. If you're at part of a water system, you should get every year. It's called a consumer confidence report that talks about what's in your water, what makes it safe. Most larger systems tend to have that information on their website, so you can see what kind of violations they've had. Most of them haven't. So there's a lot of resources out there to feel confident if you're in larger systems. Unfortunately, smaller communities tend to have more problems. And smaller communities tend to be more low-income communities of color who are unfortunately facing this crisis. And then secondly, it's also just important to make sure that there's just general advocacy for better enforcement of the rules. I think, PFAS is a big one. It's a non-stick kind of material that was found in water that they've been putting in products for years, only to now find that that's going to that's causing a whole host of health problems. And it's in pretty much all the water that we're finding it in a lot of water systems. And so making sure that we're empowering the government to better regulate, because if they're not keeping up with how fast these chemicals get introduced, then we can never make sure the water's safe.
Yeah, and so most people have heard about the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, and I said Jackson, Mississippi has, and perhaps an ongoing water crisis. But folks, most people feel like those are isolated incidents, and something like that probably would never happen in their communities. Should we be so confident that what happened in Flint and Jackson, Mississippi, and other cities, should we be confident that that kind of catastrophe around the water supply wouldn't happen in, say, a city like Los Angeles or Philadelphia or Chicago?
I don't think, you should, if you're in a larger city in this country, you should be, afraid of something like that happening, in any given moment. But that being said, climate change is accelerating and impacts are accelerating. And the way we get our water, as Dr. Hightower described, it's not designed for the climate we're going to have. And so I think everybody should be mindful of the fact that drinking water, safe drinking water, it's a human right, but it's also a miracle in the sense that we built out this amazing infrastructure to be able to provide this for everybody, for most everybody. And we have to keep fighting to maintain that. And that means making sure that people are advocating for what they need. We need more resources to keep investing in our systems. We can't just rely on the old systems. We need to make sure there's funding out there so that they get upgraded without it falling on ratepayers, without it falling on individual families to have to pay for that.
Yeah, when we come forward, I want to talk about how we educate the public about the issue of water to have them engage in the kind of advocacy you just talked about. I just don't think people are thinking about water as being contaminated or having any issue that needs the kind of advocacy that we've been talking about. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
With your Los Angeles Public Library card, you can access the latest music, movies, audiobooks, ebooks, graphic novels, and more, all for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Charles Barkley in a pickup game.
We'll take Barkley.
Ha! First pick. Sorry, kids.
Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision?
Okay, here's the plan. Pass me the ball every time.
This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertari Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Kyle Jones, Policy Director of Community Water Center in Central Valley, California, is joining us for this conversation we're having about climate justice. We're focused on water today, asking the question if our water supply is safe and how climate change may impact the infrastructure that exists in California and throughout the country as it relates to our water supply. The other question, Kyle, is people don't typically go around thinking about water. They don't typically, we just turn on our faucets and it comes out, we drink it, we wash our clothes with it, we put it in pots to cook meals with it. But there is an issue as climate change is happening in terms of how we store water and how we make it available to communities across this country. How do we get more people vested in this issue, talking about it and being willing to, stand up on these issues of climate justice as it relates to water?
Well, I think the first thing for folks to know is what is in your water, and who is delivering that water? Where does your water come from? So it does take some work on behalf of consumers to understand those questions. And you can look through your bills and through your CCRs, the consumer confidence reports that you're getting, and try to figure out what those are. But unfortunately, water governance is really complicated in California. There's over 3,000 community water systems in this state. Some are private, some are regulated by the state, some aren't. Some have boards that you can talk to and go to, and some have open meetings, some don't. And so the first step is try to look and see if what is in your water, and then who do you talk to about that? And then secondly, make sure that your local elected officials know that this is something that you care about. That your city council person, that your state assembly member, your senator knows that you care about making sure that we have safe and affordable drinking water in the city, in this state.
How can people find out? Like you said, 3,000 different, so did you say 3,000 different entities supplying water across the state of California?
Yes, 3,000 community water systems. There's even more if you loop in mobile home parks or smaller units, but for the most part, about 3,000 water systems. And so,
do you know just by who sends you a bill? Is that your solution?
Yes, and thankfully, in some of the larger cities, it's easier. They'll have better websites. There's more sophistication, but it does get really challenging. Some of the communities we work with, their water systems don't have websites, or don't have a number that is staffed, or maybe they'll have one person working on part time. Some water systems have volunteer. Are all run by volunteers. And so sometimes it can be challenging. And that's why we always suggest, if you're having trouble with the water in your community and you can't get hold of someone, there are other places, other levers of governmental power you can go to. And that's, city council persons, local, state and state officials like your assembly member, your senators who can help look at these things. But ultimately, it's just about making sure that they know that this is something people on the ground care about.
Who regulates water? So, we think about the FDA around, airlines or regulators around the food that appears on grocery shelves. Who regulates water? Is that state by state, or are there national regulators?
It's both. So at the national level, there's the United States Environmental Protection Agency. They have an Office of Water that helps set some of the regulations behind contaminants. They can set out the levels at which drinking water is safe. Unfortunately, as we know, with federal politics, sometimes that there are agencies that want to protect us, and sometimes some years they don't. They aren't interested in that. They're interested in deregulation. And
yeah, it's interesting. I just want to stop you because I was reading that the lead and copper rule that was meant to address the nation's drinking water problem, that it was weakened under the Trump administration, and the EPA makes a decision about which of those rules it's going to defend or not. So, what happens when you have different administrations come in? They take a different approach to regulation of water systems, because I assume these 3,000 community water systems, this is a money making venture, right, for cities.
Some of them are, investor-owned utilities that make a profit. Some of them just have to pay. They only get to pay for, what it costs to maintain the system. But you're absolutely right. The Trump administration, other administrations, if they try to walk back regulations or weaken rules, it has two effects, really. One, obviously, the harm that it causes from not having the protection in place. But then secondly, the lack of progress you make. We're not making progress because we have to then go in with the Biden administration and undo some of the bad stuff the previous administration did. I think thankfully in California, we also have our state authorities here. So we have the State Water Resources Control Board, and they have a lot of the same powers the federal government does, just in terms of what can be done at the state. And so they're actually ahead of the curve when it comes to making sure that we have regulations. For example, hexavalent chromium. You may remember that contaminant from the movie Erin Brockovich. They're going to be setting a standard for that in this April, whereas the federal government hasn't even thought about doing that. So thankfully, this is yet another place where California gets to be a leader and do more to protect all Californians. Still,
but if
we
you,
need to do more.
If you live in a state other than California, do you find differences in terms of red states versus blue states? Are there any differences?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely, first of all, less investment in infrastructure to begin with. In California, we were able to get, working with the Newsom administration, $1.3 billion for infrastructure in 2021 when we had that surplus. And that money's already gone out the door for these projects. I work with national coalitions. We have friends that we're working with in Texas and all across the Gulf South, and that's just not the case. So I think when you talk about how do people get involved, understand that we're building a movement. We're building a movement that is national because we need attention, and we need eventually a place where Congress can step in to invest in what we need, which is funding so that our water can be safe, that we can have it be resilient against climate change, and that we can trust the tap, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's what's most effective, efficient, and affordable for all of us.
But again, going back to the profit-making water companies, those companies that sell water, to all of us, are they a powerful lobby, and are they in any way preventing us from getting to a point where we can all trust our tap? Because I'm just thinking about underserved, under-resourced communities. If you could cut out the purchase of water, I mean, that would be huge. So, are we fighting a big lobby around water in the way that we fight gun lobbyists, or maybe cigarette, lobbyists, tobacco lobbyists?
I don't think we're there yet. I think that would be, if we got to that point, that would show that we've had a lot of success in other places where we're at a place where we think that them getting shut down is a viable alternative. A lot of times, the people that we're fighting with, at least in the state and the federal spaces, and not Dr. Hightower, not Metropolitan necessarily, but it is some of these water agencies, some of these small water agencies in particular, that don't want to change the way things are done and to make things better. Because it's hard, right? It takes staff time. You have to change your mindset. But at the end of the day, it is a human right, and it is a service you are providing people. And we need to make sure that that is safe and affordable. And so we try to work with what we can to make sure that those agencies are not standing in the way. It's really unfortunate to see local governments challenge the work that we're trying to do to make sure that people have safe water, because they just don't want to change the way they're doing things. And it takes time, but we do try to work through that opposition to make positive change.
So if someone is interested in getting involved and becoming more active around climate change, climate justice issues, water in particular, what do you recommend for them?
I think join, if there's local volunteer organizations, there's so many, especially in, if we're talking about in urban Los Angeles, there's, the Sierra Club, 350, Enviro Voters. You can also find more information on our own website, communitywatercenter.org. climate.org. We have a drinking water tool on there. You can see how your water system is doing with some contaminants. It's not all of them. It's not as comprehensive necessarily as a consumer confidence report, but we have it laid out in a nice graphical area. So I'm a visual learner, and that helps me. There are local groups that are working on this. And so, it'll take a little bit of research to do, but if you can do that research, find places to plug in and join the movement.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Thanks for the work that you and your agency are doing across the state. Thank you for lifting up. There's so much valuable information on this. Really appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
No doubt, climate justice is an issue. We're going to be talking about it throughout the year on this station, up and down the station shows across the network. We're going to be talking about climate justice and climate issues. And we are in the midst of a big election, both for the president, U.S. senators, as well as U.S. representatives, as well as a ton of local elections across the state. So when you are thinking about who you're voting for, you want to make sure that the issue of climate justice, the issue of water safety, the issue of chemicals and the kinds of chemicals that are in your food and chemicals that we're forced to breathe, that all of these issues are part of your due diligence as you are picking those candidates that you want to support. We heard Kyle say that the Trump administration undid regulations that set us back in this country, and now organizations like his are having to get those regulations restored, regulations that can ensure the safety of water in this country. So folks who are thinking that, they may be voting on one issue as it relates to a candidate, make sure you're checking out all of these issues, particularly the issues around your health, your safety, the safety of your family, and the safety of your community. When we come forward, the next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers in the Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.